Welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha, a podcast shared by David Roylance. This podcast is dedicated to guiding you to completely eliminate the discontent mind and the suffering it causes by attaining enlightenment. Learn and practice the teachings of Gotama Buddha that will guide you to fully attain a peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy. To support this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha or visit buddhadailywisdom.com, where you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online learning resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Now, here's our teacher to share more.
Sawadee Kap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is our group learning program, and we're studying Chapter 20 in Volume 1 of our book series, which is titled Animal to Human, The Evolution of Our Consciousness. This is where you're learning a little bit about the cycle of rebirth and getting introduced to that, but more importantly, helping you to understand how the human consciousness in the unenlightened state is oftentimes moving from this animal conditioning from multiple existences in the animal realm into the human realm. And the more clearly that you can see this, it actually helps to shape your goals and objectives on the path to enlightenment. Because what you start to realize is that as an unenlightened human being, the mind oftentimes functions very much like an animal. And if you can understand these animalistic instincts, then what you can see is that you're shedding these animalistic instincts and moving closer and closer to being a human being, where you're performing more and more as a better and better human being. That's essentially what the path to enlightenment is doing, where you're shedding certain animalistic instincts and moving to becoming this better and better human being. So I'm going to be sharing teachings with you today that introduces you to the cycle of rebirth while helping you to see and observe certain animalistic traits that are in the unenlightened mind, so that as you identify those in your day-to-day life, that you can shed those and then move closer and closer to a better and better human being through getting to this enlightened mental state. So I'd like to welcome all of you, whether you're joining for the first time or you've been joining regularly. As we go in our class today, you're more than welcome to ask questions. You can ask questions by putting those into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and ask any and all questions that you like. So in order to understand what I'm going to be sharing with you, it's important to take a step back and keep in mind what it is that you're doing on the path to enlightenment. On the path to enlightenment, you're learning, you're reflecting to independently verify, and you're practicing. You're examining teachings, you're investigating them, you're learning them, and then you're reflecting on those to independently verify, and then you're practicing to uproot certain pollutions out of your mind. And as you're uprooting these pollutions out of the mind, you're not believing any of the teachings of the Buddha. You are not believing, and hoping something good happens when you die. Instead, you're gaining wisdom so that now you can make wiser and wiser decisions about your life and training the mind and gaining this discipline, understanding the natural laws of existence, so that you can move the mind to this peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy that is the enlightened mental state, by uprooting certain pollutions in the mind. So this cycle of rebirth that the Buddha taught, he didn't just teach it as a way to kind of toss it in there as a belief. It's not an actual belief. You can independently verify the cycle of rebirth and the things that I'm going to share with you today related to the 5 realms of existence and the cycle of rebirth. Right now, an individual may not have the wisdom that they need in order to independently verify the cycle of rebirth and the 5 realms of existence, but by being introduced to these teachings and then being guided in how to approach this to independently verify it, you can independently verify it. So as you need help to independently verify the cycle of rebirth, there's content that I share to be able to help you to do that. And at the same time that you understand that your goal in this path is to move to this peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy, it's helpful to understand why the Buddha taught the cycle of rebirth. He's teaching the natural laws of existence. He's teaching what's truly happening in the world. Because when your mind doesn't understand what's truly happening in the world, it's easy to be shaken up. when you're struggling and you're having difficulties, this is because you have a lack of wisdom about the natural laws. And when you gain wisdom about those natural laws, you can make wise decisions that produce wholesome results based on the natural law of Gotama, of cause and effect, or action and result, the results of your decisions. And when you make unwise decisions, you're going to experience unwholesome results due to the natural law of Gotama. Well, an individual who is learning and practicing the teachings and trying to understand the natural laws of existence, as you're eliminating the pollution out of your mind and you're lifting that out of the mind, it can be possible that you have communication with beings in these 5 realms that I'm going to talk with you about today. And if you didn't understand the natural laws, that these realms actually exist, these beings actually exist, and they can communicate with you, you could very easily be shaken up because you don't understand the world around you. Or if you start having memories of past lives, this could really shake you up if you didn't understand that you've had past lives. So if you only believed that you had one life and that these other realms that the Buddha taught about hell, animal realm, afflicted spirits, the human realm, and heavenly realm didn't exist, when you start experiencing communication with beings from these realms and or you observe past lives, you could easily be shaken up because of the unknowing of true reality and the craving and anger that's in the mind. These pollutions can arise, and then you'll find yourself struggling and having difficulties as it relates to the condition of the mind. So what you would like to do is you would like to be able to study the cycle of rebirth in these 5 realms in such a way that should you start experiencing those residual memories of past lives or communication with these other beings, you're not shaken up by it, that you understand that it's completely normal. So I'm going to help you to understand the problems in the human consciousness, and all beings are having these actual problems, but you can understand them as a human being. I'm going to help you to see these problems that we've talked about previously in this program in summary form, but then relating it to animal consciousness, because every being that's in existence today has had countless rebirths in the past. And many of those rebirths were in the animal realm. And coming out of the animal realm, even though the mind is in the human existence, it's holding on to conditioning from our animal existences. And because of that, it motivates unskillful conduct around our intentions, our speech, and our actions, which makes it difficult for us to live harmoniously with all beings in this world. So I'm going to share with you in summary form something that I taught previously in this program called the 3 poisons, or the 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 fires, because this is giving you a glimpse into the mind of an animal. And when you can understand the mind through an animal's mind and then also through your own mind, you can see how you've held on to this conditioning from animal existences, and now you can shed that and you can become this better and better human being where you can function through these natural laws. Because as an animal, we weren't able to evolve our consciousness all the way to the point of enlightenment, but now as a human you can. But if you continue to hold on to the animal consciousness and the conditioning from your animal existences, you're not going to be able to experience that liberation and improvement to the condition of the mind. So if you remember back to the 3 poisons, or the 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 fires, I talked about craving, anger, and ignorance, or some people refer to it as greed, hatred, and delusion. The craving is the mental longing and strong eagerness, the chasing after the objects of your affection, the selfish desires, thinking that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it. The mind wants certain things. And if the mind gets what it wants based on its cravings, then it experiences those pleasant feelings of happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But those feelings arise, they change, and they fade away. They're only temporary. And then you ultimately end up potentially in the painful feelings. And then if you have certain cravings that the mind's chasing after and you don't get what you want, then the mind ends up in those painful feelings. And this is all because of the mind longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of its affection. One of the feelings that can arise, or one of the qualities of mind that arises, is this anger, this hatred, this ill will, in lesser versions like frustration, irritation, annoyance, things like this. And when the mind is experiencing those painful feelings, it oftentimes attributes them to something external. like a person or a situation. And when you experience those painful feelings, falsely believing that the problem is external, you might push away the person, or you might push away the situation. Or you might become bitter and harsh and hostile. It's almost like an animal roaring, like roar, trying to fear that other being into doing things your way. And if you can fear that other being into doing things your way with your roaring, with your animosity, your bitterness, and your hostility, then the mind thinks that it got what it wanted, which is it's got its cravings fulfilled. And now everything in the world is good for a period of time. But ultimately, the mind's going to end up back in these painful feelings. Or the other thing that the unenlightened mind does is it can put its expectations on others. When you're experiencing those painful feelings based on your cravings, the mind thinks that the way to get to something that's comfortable, because those painful feelings are uncomfortable, you might put your expectations on your family or your friends or your coworkers and think that that's going to solve the problem. The mind is trying to see if you can get other people to do things your way. And unfortunately, none of this works. As long as you push people away, or you push the situation away, it doesn't solve the problem, because you just get angry or irritated or agitated about something else. Or if you become bitter, harsh, and hostile, where you're growling and roaring at people like an animal, that doesn't work either, because people just get scared and ultimately they might leave you, or they might just be upset themselves and decide to leave out of the relationship. Or if you put your expectations on people, they can feel pressured and decide to leave out of the relationship for that reason. And where all of this is coming from is the ignorance or the unknowing of true reality. The unenlightened mind just doesn't understand, due to its confusion, to its delusion, to its misunderstanding, to its misperception, that the problem is not external. The problem is the craving, desire, attachment. That's the cause of the problem. The longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection. That the mind can only be happy if these particular cravings get fulfilled. If your bank account is this, if your boss does this, if your mom does this, if the weather is this, there are certain conditions, certain expectations, certain wants that the unenlightened mind has. It has those cravings, desires, attachments, wants, expectations, and it can only be happy in that limited experience where all those conditions are met. And as soon as those conditions start to change, the mind ends up in those painful feelings of anger, frustration, sadness, and others. And where this is all coming from is the unknowing of true reality, this misunderstanding and confusion that the mind has. So while we call it craving, anger, and ignorance, it's really because of ignorance that craving and anger continues to exist. So as long as these fires are in the mind, or these unwholesome roots, it's going to motivate unskillful conduct. And this is what an animal experiences, that they have cravings, so they kill, they steal, they have sexual misconduct, they get angry. They might have a certain territory that they've marked out in their in the jungle, or in the forest, or in the Sahara, or some area that they're in. They might mark that territory out, and if another animal encroaches on that, then they get angry and bitter and hostile. And this is coming from the unknowing of true reality. Animals cannot cultivate enough wisdom to fully awaken to the natural laws of existence the way a human being can. But these same craving, anger, and ignorance that exist in the animal realm, it's in the human consciousness as well. Every single being that is in existence is going to have some amount of craving, anger, and ignorance. If their mind is unenlightened, they're going to have this to a certain degree. And as you train your mind on the path to enlightenment, you're eradicating these three poisons, or these three unwholesome roots, or these three fires. These are the problems that are experienced within all beings, within all realms. Then there's something called the ego. This is described in chapter 16 when I talked about that as personal existence, view, and conceit. During the lifetime of the Buddha, the word ego didn't exist, so he described it accurately as personal existence, view, and conceit, which is really helpful because the symptoms that you experience because of personal existence, view, and conceit are very different. And the remedies to fix these are different as well. So you would need to understand personal existence, view, and conceit. What personal existence view is where the mind is clinging to the idea or the concept or the misperception that this body or this mind is you. The mind thinks that this body is who you are, your self-image. And the mind wants to be projecting this self-image in the world in a certain way. And as long as the mind can project this self-image in the world in a certain way, it can feel content potentially, or it gets this happiness. But then when the mind is experiencing this self-image in a way that it doesn't want to, now it can experience the anger, the frustration, or other certain feelings, even embarrassment. So for example, if you spilled chocolate ice cream or pizza sauce on your clothing and you felt embarrassed in a public situation or a social setting, this is because the mind's clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are. And now when you're not being perceived in the world in the way that the mind wants, now the embarrassment arises. Or if you've got a gray hair, or you're losing your hair, or you get a pimple or a mole, or you get a little bit of fat here or there, or you get a wrinkle or something like this, you might be shaken up during that time frame if you're clinging to the self-image, wanting to be perceived a certain way. And the same thing is happening with the self-identity, that the mind might be clinging to a certain culture, ethnicity, certain nationality, maybe your sexual orientation, or a certain job or role or occupation that you're performing, thinking that this is who you are as a person. And now, if you hear somebody say something complimentary, you might get those pleasant feelings. But if you hear somebody saying something negative or degrading or disparaging about any of those things, you can get angry or frustrated. And because you can't control what other people do, you're going to come in contact with people who are degrading your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your job or occupation, your nationality, or any of these different things. You could be sitting at a restaurant and 2 tables over, somebody's degrading where you come from, or degrading your sexual orientation, or any number of things, your race or ethnicity. You can't control what other people say, but you can control your own mind. But if you have personal existence view in your mind where you're clinging to your identity, thinking that this is who you are, then you can easily be shaken up during these experiences. Or if you're in a relationship with somebody and you identify with, I am a boyfriend, or I am a girlfriend, or I am a husband, and I am a wife. Now, when you break up in that relationship, you might really struggle, feeling like you want to hurry up and get right back into another relationship to assume that role and identity again. Maybe you feel lost and confused that this isn't who you are anymore, that you've kind of lost yourself. Well, this personal existence view is a pollution that gets in the way in the human realm because it causes all these complications in you having a peaceful and joyful and harmonious life with all beings. In the animal realm, you need this personal existence view because as a deer in the forest, if there is a predator in the woods, you need to be on guard and you need to be looking out to be able to survive. But in the human realm, it just causes you issues, it causes you difficulties. And then there's this conceit, which is arrogance and pride and boastfulness, this putting yourself above people and below people, judging others and trying to determine what's wholesome or unwholesome for them, putting yourself above them or putting yourself below them. This conceit is going to come out in your intentions, your speech, and your actions with others. And when it does, people are going to reject you and push you aside. If you're putting yourself above people, then in some cases, you're probably also putting yourself below people. Maybe when you're around your boss, you might feel shaken up. Or if you're around a certain celebrity or somebody who's considered to be famous or has a lot of power in their role in society. And in this situation where your mind's all shaken up, you can't bring forth your full wisdom and communicate in a way that would be wise. And now certain professional opportunities or career opportunities that could otherwise help you advance in life, you're not going to have those available to you because your mind is all shaken up. And you might even have an inner dialogue or an inner voice that's negative and degrading and disparaging you. Because if you're judging other people and putting them down, you're most likely going to be judging yourself and putting yourself down as well. So this conceit, you're going to put yourself above people sometimes and talk down to them, and they're going to reject you. But in other cases, you're going to put yourself below people, and now your mind's going to be shaken up in those situations, and you're going to find that you lose out on opportunities to advance in life. Well, this conceit in the animal realm is actually needed. Without conceit in the animal realm, you wouldn't be able to survive. When we were a pack of wolves, we needed to know who is the alpha male and who's the alpha female so that we could learn from them. We needed to learn how to hunt so that we could eat. And we needed them to actually be breeding so that our wolf pack could grow and become more strong. When we were a herd of elephants, we needed to know who was above us because we needed to know who the matriarch of the herd is so that we could know where the food is, where the watering holes are, where the migration paths are. We needed to know who was above us. We needed a pecking order in the animal realm. In each individual animal existence, we needed to know this pecking order of who was above us and who was below us because it helped us in our survival. But here in the human realm, we don't need a pecking order. We don't need people to be above us and we don't need people to be below us. We need everybody to just view each other as equal. And while other people might view themselves as above you or below you, if you do this, you're going to be rejected. So while other people might choose to have personal existence view or conceit, it's unwise for you to continue to hold on to this. So that's why I've taught you in chapter 16 what these two things are in detail and how to eliminate them. And they're coming from your animal existences. And as long as your mind holds on to this, then you're going to come into this human world and now you're going to be functioning in a way that is very animalistic, but yet you're a human being. And the mind doesn't see the difference that in the animal realm, you needed these qualities of mind in order to survive. Here in the human realm, you don't need these qualities of mind to survive. It's actually causing you complications in your relationships and hindering you from being able to reside harmoniously with all individuals and all beings. So your current life and your previous lives have conditioned the mind to think in a certain way based on its craving, anger, and ignorance, and based on this personal existence view and conceit existing in the mind for so many countless animal existences. The mind was conditioned to think in a certain way. And now, even though the mind in this existence is human, the mind doesn't know that by itself because of its ignorance and its unknowing of true reality. It doesn't understand how a human mind functions without craving, anger, and ignorance. It doesn't have the ability to do that because it's been conditioned for so many existences to function like an animal. In this human existence, the mind lacks wisdom of how to eradicate personal existence view and conceit, or that it even exists, and how it's causing complications in your life. So by gaining this wisdom, you can identify when the mind's functioning through craving, anger, and ignorance, or personal existence view and this conceit, and then you can start shedding that. You can start shedding these animalistic instincts and become more and more human. So it's this cycle of rebirth and this continuous rebirth that is causing continuous difficulties in your life through holding on to this conditioning of mind. Of course, you're continuing to experience sickness, aging, and death in the various existences that we have, but you're also holding on to this conditioning from the animal existences. And you can purge all of this. You can get rid of all of this and move on to being a wiser and wiser human being where you can live harmoniously with all beings. But as you're doing that and you're lifting this pollution out of the mind, you may have contact with beings in the various realms, as I mentioned. You might end up having contact with beings in the heavenly realm, or the afflicted spirit realm, or the hell realm. I'm sure you've had contact with beings in the human realm, in the animal realm, but oftentimes individuals have contact with these other beings in the formless realms too, and they have challenges to understand that and rationalize that because they haven't really been taught what this is and that this is truly what is happening. So I'm going to walk you through understanding the 5 realms of existence and what transpires in each one of these realms so that you can be familiar with these beings so that if you end up receiving contact with them, you won't be shaken up by it. Just like if you were at a table in a restaurant and 2 or 3 tables over, people are talking and human beings are talking, and you can ignore that and just continue to stay focused on your conversation. You can do the same thing when you're experiencing contact with beings in these other realms. Whether you choose to do that or not is up to you. But if you experience contact with beings from the hell realm or the afflicted spirit realm, it's usually unwholesome contact. They're usually very unwise. They're usually trying to motivate you to do unskillful things. You can just ignore that. You don't have to be shaken up and think you're crazy or anything like that. Or if you receive contact from beings from the heavenly realm, these beings are usually interested in motivating wholesome things and wise things to occur in the world. And you may gain some insight and wisdom from that. But you need to be able to discern what this is and then not be shaken up by it. So let me walk you through these 5 realms, helping you understand what they are and what beings are experiencing in these realms, keeping in mind that this is the natural law so that now you can reside more stable and steady if you're experiencing contact with any of these beings. Because while people think that these realms are in far distant places, like the heavenly realm is far up in the sky, the hell realm is deep in the core of the earth, in reality, these beings are in the same time and space as you. They're in the same plane. Just like a human is here in this seat now, and I'm sitting here as a human being, when I get up and leave, there could be an animal that comes and sits here. There could be a spider, or maybe a squirrel or a chipmunk or something like that that could come sit in this chair. Humans and animals are in the same time and on the same plane. And the same thing is true about the heavenly realm, the afflicted spirit realm, and the hell realm. All these beings are in the same time and space. They're not in far distant places. And this is one of the reasons why people get shaken up when they start experiencing contact from these beings, because they're only used to seeing form beings like animals and humans. So a heavenly being in the heavenly realm is a formless being. It doesn't have physical form. Some human beings can see heavenly beings, that it's possible to see them even though they're formless. The beings in the heavenly realm only experience pleasant feelings. They don't experience the painful feelings or the feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. Their mind is unenlightened. They're still in the cycle of rebirth, but they're only experiencing those conditioned pleasant feelings. They can cultivate the consciousness to attain enlightenment, but they oftentimes lack motivation to do so because they're only experiencing pleasant feelings. In the human realm, we experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. We can cultivate our consciousness to attain enlightenment, and we tend to have more motivation because the human beings don't like those painful feelings or the painful feelings nor pleasant feelings. They don't like those feelings. So that tends to be built-in motivation to motivate you, encourage you to make your way to enlightenment. This is like the ideal existence to be in the human realm because you can cultivate your consciousness and you tend to have the motivation to do so. Then there's the afflicted spirit realm, which some people refer to as ghost or hungry ghost. This is also a formless realm. They experience painful feelings and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. They cannot cultivate their consciousness to attain enlightenment, but they can cultivate the consciousness to a certain degree. The beings in this realm tend to have an extensive amount of craving, desire, attachment to either people, places, or possessions. This is why you hear people say, oh, there's a ghost that's haunting my house. Or people might have a certain ghost or spirit that is following them around because they have craving. They're holding on to this world. They haven't moved into another existence. They're still holding on. So they haven't moved into a human existence or a heavenly existence. They're holding on to an existence of a house that they might have had where they were a human, or they might be holding on to the people and the relationships or a certain place that they've been to. So these formless beings that are afflicted spirits, they are oftentimes having a significant amount of craving, and they need to extinguish it in order to be able to move into a different existence, like a human existence or maybe a heavenly existence. But they can also move down into the animal realm or into the hell realm as well, if they continue to crave and they don't extinguish their cravings. The animal realm is one that you're probably also familiar with. They experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. They can't cultivate their consciousness to the point of enlightenment, but they can cultivate their consciousness to a certain degree, especially with involvement from human beings, which they've had a lot of over the years, where more and more animals are interacting with human beings and they're being trained. And this is one of the reasons why the human realm is expanding. That is, animals are shrinking in the animal realm. The human realm is expanding because these animals are gaining more learning, more training, and now with their mind more developed, they're able to move into the human realm more easily. And that's why we're seeing the human realm expanding. So while these beings can't cultivate their consciousness to attain enlightenment, they can cultivate their consciousness to a certain degree. Even if you had a pack of wild monkeys or something like this, there would be certain monkeys that are more loving and more kind in that big group, But then there'd be other monkeys that are more hostile and more aggressive and more bitter. So even in the animal realm by themselves, they can cultivate their consciousness to a certain degree. And you can see different animals have different levels of loving kindness or compassion, like a tiger or a lion comparison to a turtle or a rabbit or elephant or something like that. In the different existences within the animal realm, they have the ability to cultivate more and more loving kindness or compassion and even generosity in some cases. But mostly in the animal realm, they're functioning and operating through basic survival instincts. They're killing, they're stealing, they're having sexual misconduct. These are the things that the animals do. They play, they fight, they eat, they sleep, they steal things from each other, and they have sexual misconduct. And this is one of the reasons why you're often reborn countless times in the animal realm before you ever get a chance to move into another realm, like a human realm with an opportunity to get to enlightenment. By those animals cultivating more and more of their consciousness, and with the help of humans, they can oftentimes make their way to the human realm more readily. But ideally, animals would be out in the forest doing animal things. Humans would be in the human world doing human things, and we wouldn't have this cross contamination where animals, viruses from the animal realm are making their way into the human realm. This is why we've gotten so many viruses like COVID, HIV, mad cow disease, swine flu, bird flu. The list goes on and on and on, where there's been all these diseases from the animal world that have come into the human world, where because of our reliance and dependency on animals, it's allowing all of this to come into the human world. And this is a result of our unwise decisions that we're being affected by these diseases and these viruses and things that are coming in from the animal realm. But that animal realm is there for individuals that are being reborn and needing to extinguish a certain amount of craving in order to evolve beyond that. So once a being is in the animal realm, they're often experiencing countless rebirths before they ever get a chance to move into another realm. Then there's the realm of hell. This is a formless realm. They experience only painful feelings. They can't cultivate their consciousness to attain enlightenment. Of course, they can eliminate some amount of craving in order to move on from that existence, but they have extensive amounts of craving, anger, and ignorance. They don't understand true reality. They've done significantly harmful things in the various realms that they might have been in at any given time, and they're reborn into the hell realm in order to extinguish their unwholesome results and their unwholesome karma. None of these realms are permanent. They're all impermanent. Oftentimes we're taught that the heavenly realm is permanent or the hell realm is permanent. None of these are permanent. The universal truths, those natural laws that you've been learning, they apply all across the world. So while oftentimes people believe that the heavenly realm or the hell realm are permanent, if you understand the natural laws of existence and the universal truth of impermanence, you can see that nothing around you is permanent, that this world of material objects is all impermanent. So this heavenly realm and then this hell realm is also impermanent, just like all the other realms. Beings are being reborn in and out of these realms at all different times. There's not a specific sequence that you would be reborn in. You can go from the hell realm right up to the heavenly realm, although that's extremely rare. You can even go from the hell realm up to the human realm, which is also rare. And you can go from the human realm up to the heavenly realm and then back down to the hell realm. So you can even go from the heavenly realm down into the hell or animal or afflicted spirit realm. Beings are being reborn in and out of these realms at all times. By the time you get to the first stage of enlightenment, you will never be reborn down into the lower realms of existence ever again. You'll never be reborn in hell, animal, or afflicted spirit realm once you get into the first stage of enlightenment. You'll only ever be reborn back into the human realm or the heavenly realm, depending on what stage of enlightenment that you're in. If you attain enlightenment, the Buddha doesn't declare what comes next. We know that you're not going to be reborn within the cycle of rebirth, but the Buddha doesn't declare if there is something next or there isn't something next. He just leaves it as an undeclared teaching. So I'm going to pause here and see if there's any questions before I move on in our discussion today. You can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or if you're in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and ask any questions that you like. Okay, it looks like we have a question from Mayuli here in Facebook. She's asking, Teacher, for personal existence view, if I notice throughout the day that I am clinging to a personal existence view, I can always come back to the non-self affirmation as many times as I need, correct? Yes, you can surely do that. As much as you need, that'll help you to cut off and let go of clinging to the body or the mind as who you are. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions anywhere. So let me continue to share content with you to help you understand how you observe past lives and how this may occur for you. Not everybody's going to observe past lives. Some people do and some people don't. If you observe past lives, it can help you to confirm the cycle of rebirth. But there's other ways to confirm the cycle of rebirth without having observed your past lives. So some people observe past lives and some people don't. If you observe past lives, you can also gain some insight into certain cravings that you're having in this life. Because what happens is each life is like a cardboard box. You have a cardboard box that is a certain size, a certain shape, a certain color, a certain texture. And then there's certain contents in that cardboard box. There's cravings and residual memories. When this first cardboard box A dissolves because it is impermanent, the contents of craving and residual memories move into a new cardboard box. The new cardboard box B, it's a completely new color, new shape, new texture, a completely different cardboard box. The contents of cardboard box A have been moved into cardboard box B. And while this has been referred to as the cycle of rebirth, there's really nothing that is actually being reborn at all. The word that's in the original Pali Canon, the original source teachings from the Buddha, is samsara. And most people are translating that to mean the cycle of rebirth. But if you look at how the Buddha describes the cycle of rebirth, that it's a new body and a new mind every single time, then you can come to the understanding that it's not the cycle of rebirth because nothing is actually being reborn. It's really truly the cycle of new existence, that every single time it's a new existence. So you're in this cycle of new existence where there's a new body and a new mind every single time, but the contents of the mind move from life to life. So you might have cravings and residual memories from your previous lives that are motivating certain decisions in this life. And oftentimes people are believing that they only have one life. And if they really struggle in life and they're having a lot of difficulties, they might think the answer is to kill themselves. And that solves the problem because they only have one life. But if you understand this cycle of rebirth or this cycle of new existence, then you understand that killing yourself is the worst thing you can do because you're just going to be reborn into another existence, most likely in the lower realms of hell, animal, or afflicted spirits. And now you've got a significant problem to deal with because you've got to make your way back out of those existences, where oftentimes people aren't truly interested in dying. They're interested in the painful feeling stopping. So if you understand the cycle of rebirth, then one of the things you'll come to conclusion of is it's very unwise to commit suicide because that doesn't solve your problem. It just makes it worse. But as you're experiencing certain things in this life, you might notice that you start experiencing these residual memories from your past lives. The reason why the mind isn't experiencing these is because of the pollution that's in the mind. When you have the pollution of the 10 fetters, it burdens the mind and weighs it down, and you're not able to see everything that's gone on in this life and in your previous lives. You're hindered by these pollutions to be able to observe with clarity and have awareness of what's going on in this life and in your previous lives. It's almost like you walk out of your house and you're standing on that street and you can only see what's going on that street. That's essentially what it's like when you have these pollutions in your mind. You're just standing on one street. But as you start training your mind through the Eightfold Path and all the teachings that the Buddha shares, this pollution is lifting out of the mind more and more and more, and you're gaining more and more clarity. You're moving to this higher consciousness where now you can start observing more about what's going on in this life in your previous lives. This is like standing on top of a mountain looking over your town. Instead of just standing on the street where you live, you're now standing at a very high vantage point overlooking your town. And now you can see how all the streets interconnect with each other within that town. And you can see how other towns connect into that particular town. Because you've moved to this higher consciousness, this higher vantage point, you can now see things with a lot more clarity. You can see the bigger picture. And this is the case that as you're lifting out the pollution out of your mind, your mind is moving to this higher consciousness. You get a better perspective of this life, and oftentimes you might start observing your past lives too. So if you started having residual memories of maybe a horrific murder or rape or something like this, and you know that that hasn't happened in this life, and now those vivid memories are coming through your mind, you could be very easily shaken up by that if you didn't understand that that was a past life. And you can let that go. You don't need to continue to hold on to those memories. You can just let them go. So by understanding how this is working, if you start noticing this residual memories from your past lives or communication with beings in other realms, you can just reside peaceful and joyful and stable and steady, understanding that this is normal. You're always welcome to reach out to me, and I will help you if you're having any struggles with these things occur. But as you're starting to train your mind and you're lifting out more and more pollution, this is a possibility of what could potentially occur. Again, it doesn't occur for everyone, but you could potentially have these residual memories. And they're not necessarily always graphic and horrible. You could have pleasant memories from your past lives as well. So in the present moment, you need to maintain your contentedness and your peacefulness and your joy. But if your mind is continuing to have these residual memories where it's shaken up with either pleasant feelings, painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant based on things in the past, you're going to need to train your mind to eliminate that clinging and no longer hold on to that. And that will allow you to gain the stability of the mind in this life. Now, to help you understand this evolution between the animal realm over to this human realm. The vast majority of human beings have been reborn out of the animal realm. And this is why the unenlightened human mind oftentimes functions very much like an animal, because people are coming out of the animal realm. Scientists share with us that there's only 1% of the animals that once existed on the planet are still here, that 99% of the animals that once existed are now extinct. So that means 99% of all the animals shrunk down to what we see today. And you can see trillions and trillions of animals all over the world, but that only represents 1% of what once existed in the world. And this is why we see the explosion of our human realm, because the animal realm is shrinking and beings are moving up into the human realm. And now in this human realm, you can see how the human mind functions very much like an animal. We aren't animals, we are human beings, but the mind having been conditioned by many animal existences, it will oftentimes function like an animal, like lack of memory. The mind in the unenlightened state can function with a lack of memory, just like a animal. There's some animals that have better memory than others, depending on their existence, but for the most part, animals lack memory, just like a unenlightened human being. Just like an animal works through a praise and reward system, that if you're trying to train an animal to do something, you praise it and reward it, and then it has a tendency to do that behavior more frequently and more often. A human being does the same thing. When you go to school or you go to training or something like this, some education, you get a certificate, you get a reward, you get praise, and now you're more of a tendency to do that thing over and over and over again. Or if you get a congratulations from your boss or some other thing, you're going to have a tendency to do that thing over and over and over again. Good, wholesome, wise behavior can be incentivized through praise and reward, just like an animal. A human being's mind can be incentivized in that same way. Just like an animal learns from its pack of like species, human beings do the same things. So wolves learn how to be wolves from other wolves. Elephants learn how to be elephants from other elephants. Squirrels learn how to be squirrels from other squirrels. Human beings learn from other human beings. And depending on what family you were born into and what community you participated in as you were growing up, your mind was conditioned through learned behaviors to either be loving and kind and warm and gentle and wise, perhaps, or you might have been learning how to be aggressive and hostile and bitter and harsh. Your mind was conditioned that way. There are certain instinctive behaviors like eating and urinating and defecating and things like this. But then there's certain learned behaviors of things that we learn. And depending on what type of environment you grew up in, your mind is taking on a certain amount of conditioning in this life. And you've learned from this pack of like species. And if you've been around people that have been bitter and harsh and hostile and aggressive, you might have learned how to do those kinds of things. And now you're functioning in that way. Because just like a baby tiger or baby lion is very friendly and very loving and very warm. It learns how to be aggressive and hostile from its parents as it's growing up. It learns how to growl and roar and fight. And the same thing is true about a baby human being. A human being who's a baby, you don't go into the nursery at the hospital hating other babies. You learn how to have anger. You learn how to do that and be aggressive and bitter and harsh with others. But you can also unlearn that too. You don't need to continue to function that way. You can learn how to be a wiser and wiser human being rather than more and more like an animal. When you're functioning like an animal, or if you see other people functioning like an animal, we even have phrases in the human realm where we say you're acting like an animal, or you're fighting like cats and dogs, that we can identify animalistic behavior in other people. That when we see someone acting like an animal, we'll say it. You're acting like an animal, or you're fighting like cats and dogs. So even people who have no clue of the cycle of rebirth whatsoever, they are to a certain degree identifying that a human being is functioning like an animal. And this is why some people get confused thinking that human beings are animals, when in reality we're not. We are a human being. But there's people who identify with, yes, that's animalistic behavior. And if you continue with that animalistic behavior, then you're going to potentially be reborn down into the animal realm after this life. And you'll have continued struggles in this life with beings in the human realm, because you're in the human existence functioning like an animal, and human beings are more interested in seeing you function as a human being. Humans are fascinated with animals. We're just completely fascinated with animals. We grow up with stuffed animals as toys. We tend to use animals for animal products like furs or skins or leathers. We might even wear fabrics that are designed after an animal print. We go to zoos. We create zoos. We research animals. We have animals as pets. We even sleep with animals. This is what we do. We're so comfortable around animals because we're so used to countless animal existences that now in the human realm, the mind is confused of whether or not you're an animal or you're a human. And we tend to be fascinated with animals, all the way from when we were a child playing with toys and stuffed animals, all the way through adulthood where we wear prints that are animals. We go to zoos, we study animals, we research animals, we have animals as pets. There's just so many animals everywhere in everything that we do because we're so fascinated with them. Essentially, the animal consciousness is preoccupied with this craving, anger, and ignorance, this ego and this protection of a self. And so is the unenlightened human consciousness until you train it otherwise. The mind's going to continue to stay so fascinated with animals and functioning potentially very much like an animal. But where you see that animalistic behavior, you're going to need to identify it and purge it. Because when you're arguing and you're bitter and you're harsh and you're hostile and you're grumpy and you're irritable, this is your animalistic behavior that the mind has learned as an animal to be aggressive and hostile and bitter to other animals. And then that animal will be fearful and it'll do what you want it to do. And if you keep doing this, then your mind's functioning like an animal. You're never going to get to a point where your mind is peaceful and joyful, and your life is peaceful and joyful in your relationships. Because as you function like an animal, the people around you are learning that from you because of these learned behaviors, and now they're going to function like an animal with you. And you've got a pack of animals instead of a population of human beings. So if you continue to be aggressive and bitter and hostile and harsh with your intentions, your speech, and your actions causing harm to other beings, then this harm is going to come to you. One of the other things we do as human beings that is very much like an animal is an animal will go around and mark its territory. A lion will go around and urinate and defecate around its territory. It will use its scent glands and its paws and leave scent so that when other lions come, it knows that that's its territory. And now when a lion enters into your territory, that lion is then going to attack that other lion. Well, that's what we do in the human realm too. We have these plots of land. We put these fences around the land. This is my land. And if somebody else approaches into your land, you might get angry. You might get bitter. You might get harsh and aggressive and hostile, thinking this person is meaning to do you harm. And now you might try to fear that human being off of your property. And this is animalistic behavior. And I'm sure that if you start thinking about this and you start reflecting on what I'm sharing with you, and you look at the world around you, you'll see more and more animalistic behavior from yourself and from other people around you. You'll see people that are killing. You'll see people that are stealing and having sexual misconduct. And you might be doing those things or have done those things in the past too. These are very much animalistic behaviors: killing, stealing, and having sexual misconduct. Because as animals, in a lot of cases, we had to kill in order to survive. That we couldn't live if we didn't kill, as a lion. And this is why a lion's lifespan is so short. And also, as a lion, we might have stolen meat. We might have stolen things from other beings as well, which sometimes is what is occurring here in the human realm. And as a lion, we might have had sex with multiple other lions. This is something that we do in the human realm sometimes, because the mind is still clinging and holding on to this conditioning of the consciousness from the animal realm, being constantly reborn over and over and over in those animal existences, not just as a lion, but others beings as well. The mind gets conditioned to do those types of things. And now in the human realm, an individual might continue to kill, they might continue to steal, they might continue to have sexual misconduct. This is why you can see potentially a serial murderer who will be in the human realm and continually murder many human beings and even eat the flesh of another human being. This is what's going on in the animal realm. And this mind, potentially being in the human realm for the first time, is now functioning very much like an animal. So this is everything that I have to share with you guys, except for just helping you to see that the path to enlightenment is to evolve beyond these animal instincts, to evolve beyond what you're experiencing as an animal and in your previous animal existences, that you're evolving to become a better and better human being, to escape this cycle of rebirth so that you can become more and more human, so that you can eliminate this conditioning of the mind where you can eliminate craving, anger, and ignorance. The condition of our planet, in terms of the health of our planet, is directly as a result of what we have experienced through the decision making of our craving, anger, and ignorance as human beings. If humans walk towards the light, then they can experience improved results. If we continue to stay in the darkness, then the world becomes a darker and darker place to exist. But we can evolve beyond this through developing on the path to enlightenment. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you, is these natural laws, so that you can now make wise decisions and evolve beyond your animalistic instincts. So you can start identifying these animalistic things that you might be doing and then purge those and becoming a better and better human being. So rather than being aggressive and hostile and bitter through your speech and your actions, you can learn to be loving and kind and gentle and warm and friendly and respectful in all the different interactions that you have. So let me know if you guys have any questions about anything that I've shared. You can ask questions about this or anything else that you have questions about. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Okay, Mayu Lee has a question here. She's asking, also for loving kindness meditation for the first ring, instead of the affirmation of may I be peaceful and so on, I've substitute that may Mayu Lee be peaceful. May I substitute that for may you Lee be peaceful? Yes, that's a way to do it, is use a third person, is you can just reference the name that's been given to you at birth. That'll help you to realize non-self. Some people even like to use may this being be peaceful, right? You can do it that way too. And you can switch it up and use it different ways if you'd like. That's really helpful to realize non-self as part of that work that you're doing on a continuous, ongoing basis. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So you guys must be understanding this to a certain degree. And if you have questions at any time, you're always welcome to let me know, and I'm here to help you guys. Next week in our group learning program, we're going to be in chapter 21. I will help you to understand the content there, which is all about the planet and how we can be conscious to think about our planet in terms of the decision making that we make. So you're welcome to join that class. We'll have like a group discussion. You'll see that we're going to do it a little bit different than normally where I'm teaching you. I'm going to have you guys participate. So if you guys would like to come into Zoom, this would be really helpful so that we can have a nice conversation. And then on Wednesday, we're going to be doing the guided breathing mindfulness meditation. And remember, there's always the Pali Canon and English study group on Saturday that you can participate in. So as you're continuing on this path and as you're continuing to learn all the Eightfold Path and all the other teachings that you need, you can look at this as becoming a wiser and wiser human being, a better and better human being, and purging these animalistic instincts. So enjoy the rest of your day, and perhaps I will see you guys in one of these future classes. Have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. Sawadee Kap.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To provide support for this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha. To access more teachings, visit buddhadailywisdom.com. There, you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Remember to establish a daily, consistent meditation practice, along with learning and practicing these teachings. A well-developed meditation practice is the foundation in which to train the mind to attain enlightenment.